The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
The Pats make a big-time statement on Monday night.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast.
I thought this was going to be a tough game. I thought this was going to be a tight game. I had the Patriots winning, but I had them winning 23-20, and I thought the Giants would pose a number of challenges for the Patriots. Really, none of that happened tonight. The Patriots dominated this game, and they absolutely beat down and pushed around for most of the night the Giants, winning this game 33-15, making it look easy in the process. And I'm happy when I'm wrong, when it means the Patriots win. I'm happy when I'm wrong, when it means the Patriots dominate and show the football world that they are a legitimate number one seed right now in the AFC at 11-2 after winning their 10th straight game. Let's talk about the start of this game. 30-7 right out of the gates. Shot out of a cannon. And I want everybody to appreciate this because I don't want to lose the context. I don't want to lose what this team was looking at before this game tonight. When you look at the Patriots, this was their 13th straight game. They have not had a bye yet. Fortunately, they're going to have their bye this week, and I'm sure they can't wait to relax for a few days. But this was their 13th straight game. They're coming off a game against Cincinnati in Cincinnati last weekend where I thought it was maybe their most iffy, sketchy game since the Steelers' loss at Foxborough when they turned the ball over 5 freaking times. They did not look great against Cincy. They looked tired. They looked somewhat worn down. And then you look at the offensive line. You lose your starting left tackle to IR. Now, hopefully, Will Campbell's back by the playoffs. Looks like he's going to be. You lose your starting left guard, Jared Wilson, for at least this week, maybe the next few weeks. You lost Milton Williams before the Cincinnati game, and we saw how that impacted the run defense and the defense overall. And then tonight we find out that Kyrie's Tonga is not going to play. So you are missing the entire left side of your offensive line. You are missing 2 of your top 3 interior defensive linemen. Harold Landry went on record this week saying how banged up he is. He can't wait to get to the bye. He absolutely needs time off. He's out there battling. In what you saw, with all of that happening around this team, and many people, including myself, believing this was going to be a tight, tough game going against the Giants pass rush that can absolutely attack you all night long and make life miserable for the quarterback. This team goes out there and they look the way they looked to start this game in all 3 phases, offensively, defensively, special teams, which we'll get into in just a minute or so. And what you're witnessing is a Mike Vrabel football team that has completely, utterly, unequivocally bought in. They bought into their coach. They've bought into the culture. They've bought into playing for each other. They've bought into facing all these challenges. They don't care about obstacles. They see obstacles. They can't wait to get past those obstacles. They can't wait to prove everybody wrong that they are one of the best football teams in the NFL this year. And I'm sure they've heard about the schedule. I'm sure they've heard about their DVOA. I'm sure they've heard about all of this talk. Are the Patriots really good? Who have they really beat? Are they actually a number one seed? Yeah, we know that they're the number one seed, but do they actually really deserve to be the number one? I'm sure they've heard some of this. And I'm sure they heard some people say, man, Cincinnati last weekend, they did not look that good. They got ran over by that offense. Was not a great game by Drake May. I'm sure they heard all the questions all week long. And they went out there and they looked like a team that was motivated to prove a point. I thought the Patriots played angry tonight. I don't know what the Giants did to Christian Ellis or a member of Christian Ellis's family, but that dude was running around tanking people in the first half. That hit on Jackson Dart was unbelievable. He leveled Jackson Dart. He sent him into another dimension. And poor Gunnar Olszewski, hopefully he's okay after that hit from Christian Ellis tonight on the kickoff return, which ended up being a fumble. But that really was what the Patriots looked like in this first half. They were flying around the field. They were swarming to the football. They were unbelievably physical. They were, as Terrell Williams, hopefully he continues to do well in his treatment, as Terrell Williams and Mike Vrabel have said from the very beginning of this season, we want to be violent. What you saw tonight, especially in that first half, was a violent defense led by Christian Ellis. And they were finishing in all three phases. They were finishing with their runs on offense. They were finishing with their tackling, again, swarming aggressively to the football on defense. They were finishing their tackles on kick coverage and punt coverage. They were finishing their blocks on punt returns and kick returns. This was the perfect Mike Vrabel half of football to start this game. The first 30 minutes, Mike Vrabel wants to hang this puppy up in the Louvre. That's how good it was. Everything that Mike Vrabel wants this team to personify, they personified in that butt whooping of a first half. I mean, that is the fastest start they've had. And man, oh man, did they come out ready to play tonight. And that is a direct line to the head coach and this coaching staff. And then the special teams, the opening kickoff return. You get a great little kickoff return to start the game by Terrell Jennings, who left the game with a head injury. Hopefully he was okay. Obviously, you get the bye week. Then you have Marcus Jones doing Marcus Jones things with his punt return for a touchdown. Mike Reese posted from ESPN Research. Marcus Jones' third career punt return TD. He now has 75 career punt returns, which qualifies him for the official NFL record book. His career punt return average was 13.6 entering the game tonight, which was already the highest average in NFL history. Marcus Jones, literally with a minimum of 75 career punt returns, is the best punt returner in NFL history. Mark Daniels posted, Marcus Jones becomes the fourth player in Patriots history to return 2 punts for touchdowns, joining Troy Brown, Irving Fryer, and Mike Haynes. Marcus Jones is 100% an all-pro, hands down, no question. And he had 2 or 3 other good returns tonight. I don't know why the Giants kept punting the football to him, but they kept punting the football to Marcus Jones. Your special teams was on point. The return game on point. The coverage on point. Yeah, Andy Borregales missed a kick, 45 yards, whatever it was. He hasn't missed a kick in forever. I can live with 1 missed field goal. Right back on the horse later in the game. And meanwhile, the Giants' special teams was an atrocity. The Giants' special teams was an embarrassment. My goodness. Their kicker kicked the ground on an attempted field goal. I have never seen it. I'm sure you have never seen it. He kicked the ground. Unbelievable. They had the fumble on the kickoff return. The Giants were an absolute disaster on special teams. And the Patriots were the opposite. Shout out to Jeremy Springer, who had his guys ready to play tonight. I mean, that was almost, again, a perfect first half when this team absolutely needed it. Would they have dead legs trying to run through the tape to get to their bye? Would they look worn down and weary? Would they let the injuries affect them? You know, Mike Vrabel was, when he was in Tennessee, all sorts of injuries, and he always got the most out of his team, even when they were damaged by injury, when his team was a MASH unit. And here you are, 11-2, heading into the bye, the number 1 seed in the AFC.
NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
The New York Giants find another way to lose as the 2025 season falls further into the abyss.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast.
Hey, Giant fans, I'm numb, all right? I'm recording this podcast for you. It's about 12:30 at night. I'm absolutely numb. The Giants losing in embarrassing fashion to the New England Patriots. Now, originally, I had hoped to talk about some of the changes on defense, some of the improvements that were coming along the way. And I'm just going to rant. I mean, because this is just really getting ridiculous at this point. The Giants, just when you think they've reached rock bottom, they top themselves. And this week, it was special teams, which was just absolutely horrible. The Giants spotted the Patriots a 17-0 lead in the first quarter of the game alone. Okay, thanks to special teams miscues, including, later in the game, we saw Young Wei Koo with a kick that wasn't, which I have never, ever seen before in 30 plus years of covering this game. Missed tackles, guys not staying in their lanes. Just an embarrassing effort by the New York Giants, if you want to even call it an effort. And, just the big takeaway, I think, with this Giants team, they've lost their way. I think it's pretty obvious. This team has lost its way. It no longer knows how to win. They talk about being aggressive, and then you see things like on 4th and 1, Mike Kafka decides, we're going to punt instead of go for it, when it was basically 4th and inches. And then later on in the game, they had a 4th and 8, and they decided to go for it then. The lack of urgency later in the game, when towards the end they were running the ball to kill the clock when they were down by over 15 points. So I just think this team has lost its way. It just has. You talk about, we want to be aggressive. We want to be this. We want to be that. No. This team has lost its way. I hate to say it. You have seen the losing kind of settle into the locker room. And you know what the most heartbreaking thing was about this loss, folks? Watching Brian Burns, who has played his heart out all year long. This man has played his heart out through pain, through all kinds of stuff, through frustration. At the end of the first half, Brian Burns sat with his head in his hands on the Giants bench while the rest of his teammates went into the locker room. And Brian Burns had to basically be coaxed by his staffer to go into the locker room because he was that upset. It's almost like Brian Burns is the only one of the few people who cares about what happens, who goes out there with the intention of playing with pride. And it just, it's hard to watch. It just really is hard to watch. I mean, think about it, folks. It just seems like every week the Giants are making history of the wrong kind. This week, great, hat tip to Josh Dubois of the AP. The Giants allowed 30 points in the first half. And that's like the first time they've done that since, I think, going back to 2009. My goodness. Can this team be any worse? I just don't understand it. Discipline is lacking. Fundamentals are lacking. I mean, were there any good things to come out of this game? Jackson Dart was back. Didn't look too bad. The run defense for a while didn't look that bad. But it's just the same stuff week and week and week. I'm at a loss. I just am at a loss. I don't think the Giants have any answers. And you know what? This was supposed to be an audition for Mike Kafka to keep the job. He's not keeping this job, folks. He's just not. They just don't have any answers. And it's embarrassing. I mean, the Giants, they go into their bye week this week, thank goodness. And they're going to come back in a couple weeks and they're going to face 3 out of 4 teams that are in the NFC, and 2 of which are going to be division opponents. What makes anybody think that they're going to win another game this year? I don't think they will, and they've got the Raiders on their schedule, a team that they should easily beat. I don't think they should. They're going to. I really don't. And it's just so frustrating, guys. I mean, I'm running out of things to say about how bad this team is. And, this was a good opportunity for the Giants to go in, to make a statement, to get a statement win. There were favorable advantages, favorable matchups for this team, and they couldn't cash in. And it's just so sad because, like I said, there are guys like Brian Burns, Jackson Dart, Tyrone Tracy, Devin Singletary, Theo Johnson. You see certain guys who care. And then you see others who are just like, another game. And we'll talk about one actually in a little bit. But the Giants, they're lost. Plain and simple, folks. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to sit here and try and spin this into a positive by going back into the game book and saying, this worked out well, and this worked out well. It was a total team loss. And, it's just, they find new ways to lose every single stinking week. And I'm tired of it, and if I'm tired of it, I got to imagine you guys and gals are tired of it. So, bye week is coming up. Joe Shane is supposed to talk. I'll mention more about that in a little bit. But the Giants, 33-15, embarrassing. Just absolutely embarrassing. And there's no other way to put it. I've got to talk about Abdul Carter. Now, for the second time in the last 3 weeks, Abdul Carter committed some kind of infraction to team rules that earned him a benching. This time around, ladies and gentlemen, the benching was for the entire first quarter, while, again, the Patriots were racking up 17 points. Now, I'm not saying that Abdul Carter alone would have made a difference in those 17 points, but the bigger picture here is this kid, and I mean this kid, has better grow up. Okay? This is just not acceptable. Now, after the game, when he was asked by reporters, what happened, he basically said, stuff happens, except he didn't use the word stuff. Oh, nice attitude, kid. You're getting paid big bucks, and stuff happens. Wonderful. Says a lot about your maturity, doesn't it? Can't have that, all right? Abdul Carter is a very talented young man. He's going to be a great football player when he decides to grow up and realize this is a game that I get paid to play. All right. This is an opportunity that not everybody gets. And this immaturity with not showing up when doing what you're supposed to and being where you're supposed to be on time and letting your teammates down. You think back in the day that the Harry Carsons and the George Martins of the 1980s, you think those guys would have allowed this to go on? These other guys, these other teammates are out there, again, Brian Burns is out there busting his hump, and Abdul Carter, for whatever the reason, can't keep his schedule straight where he's, potentially missing games or practices or whatever. There's no excuse for that. And it's very disappointing, very disappointing. Abdul Carter, look, I'm a firm believer that you're all adults. They're all adults in that locker room. They should all be responsible for what they do. I'm not sure why Abdul Carter, especially after 2 weeks ago, saying that, I own up to it. I take accountability. I learned it won't happen again. And now something happened again that warranted a benching, this time for an entire quarter. I don't understand what's going on with this kid, but he better grow up because this is just not acceptable. It's just not. Right? He said, I let my team down. The message got through. All right. Don't tell me that, the message got through. Show me. Now I don't pretend to know Abdul Carter very well. I've spoken to him a few times. He's always been, cordial to me and whatnot. But don't walk around, and this is the impression that I'm getting just by, what's going on with him. You're not the big man on campus anymore, rookie. Whatever you got away with at Penn State isn't going to fly here. Whatever you might have gotten away with earlier before the coaching change isn't going to fly going forward. I'd like to think that Abdul Carter is an intelligent young man, and I know he is. But this lack of responsibility, it's very, very disheartening. And, if I were his teammates, again, I'd be furious with him. They shouldn't have to be his keeper. They shouldn't have to be, come on, it's time for practice, or it's time for a meeting, or it's time for whatever. Carter's got to grow up, plain and simple. And, Kafka, he's doing what he can to drive the message home. But the fact that this has happened twice now in 3 weeks, that's disturbing. Carter also told reporters after the game that, maybe my rookie season hasn't, the transition from the college to the pros hasn't gone as smoothly as I thought it would. You think? Maybe do something about it? I get it. Look, you're in a new city, you're in a new job, but this is December now. You have been with this team since what, April? All right, this is over 6 months you're with this team. You're still adjusting? Now some people might say, oh, well, the college season, it's a little shorter than the NFL season. All right, to that I say, well, don't they play bowl games? Wasn't Abdul Carter in bowl games that extended his college season? So don't give me that as an excuse. Abdul Carter has been a disappointment. For the 3rd overall pick, a guy who is brimming with talent, who I think, once he matures is going to be one heck of a football player, he's been a disappointment. And this is a guy, remember, we were talking about, this is a potential defensive rookie of the year candidate. No. So, Carter said again, the message got through. I let my team down. It won't happen again. If it does happen again, when they come out in 2 weeks, they should bench him for the rest of the season. And not only just bench him, but fine him heavily within the parameters, that they're allowed to fine him. Because that's how he's going to get the message. All right. And it's all part of, I hate to say, it's all part of this culture that has just turned so sour. Where, again, you see certain guys just give up or mail it in. And it's terrible.
NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
The Chargers did what they needed to do, blowing out the Raiders on Sunday, but it came at a major cost as star quarterback Justin Herbert broke his hand.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers.
Obviously, a big win, but the biggest story right now is Justin Herbert's hand.
Yeah, another injury for Justin Herbert to have to fight through. Fortunately, Justin Herbert is as tough as they come, and we've seen him battle through injuries before, and I am very confident he is going to do so again.
Well, if you ask him, he's planning on playing on Monday Night Football. But today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. David, the Chargers did exactly what we hoped they would do on Sunday. We didn't want them to be playing a tight game. You wanted them to come out and be able to show the improvements that were made during the bye week, and maybe more than that, show that they had that effort restored, that energy restored, get back to looking like the team that went on the 3-game winning streak, unlike the team that got blown out by the Jacksonville Jaguars. But they were able to get that done at a cost because Justin Herbert broke his left hand. We found out from Jim Harbaugh after the game. I didn't know he broke his hand because the next play after that, he threw a touchdown to Quentin Johnston. So his toughness will never be questioned. We know he's only missed games one time with as many injuries as he's had. Fractured rib cartilage, right? Broken fingers on his left hand and played through it in 2023. We know he had, patellar tendon stuff last year, played through it. He's come out of games. He's only missed games in one season. That was that 2023 season from hell. As of right now, Jim Harbaugh says that Justin Herbert is going to get a procedure on Monday, and he's unsure if he is going to miss time. And Justin Herbert is saying that the doctors are hopeful they will be able to stabilize it, and that they feel hopeful he's actually going to be able to somehow return on Monday Night Football against the Eagles.
Well, if you know Justin Herbert, then you know how tough that guy is. You know how crazy the injuries that he's played through. Lesser men would not be able to do it, quite frankly. I mean, Justin Herbert's cut from a different cloth. That's why he's the leader of this franchise. A guy that, he may not speak it, he may not talk about it, but he's going to go show it, and he's going to go prove it time and time and time again. And this is just another example to continue the tradition of quarterbacks that fight through injuries for the Chargers. Obviously, we saw it with Phillip Rivers when he played through tearing his ACL, having surgery, and playing the very next week. That's the type of kind of lineage that you have with this football franchise. And I think Justin Herbert is going to be out there. I feel confident that he is going to be, as long as everything goes well with this procedure that they do tomorrow. Justin Herbert is going to be out there. He knows that this stretch of football games is super important. It's basically a playoff time right now. If you want to be able to get to the playoffs, you got to get a couple of more wins. And I don't know how you can feel good about your prospects of the Chargers getting those wins without number 10 suiting up and leading the team on Sundays.
One shout out to Trey Lance, who I thought, looked decent in his small amount of time in this game. Justin Herbert had to go to the locker room, and he was not able to come back out there and be there for the next offensive drive. So Trey Lance, take some snaps. Ran it a couple times, did have a fumble they got bailed out on because of a false start. But I do think that, yes, if you could plan all week knowing you have Trey Lance, maybe you could win some games. The 5 games they have left on their schedule, I don't know if you'd feel good about any of those games. Like, Trey Lance might have been able to beat the Raiders on Sunday. I'll say it like that. Against the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Texans, the Broncos, the Chiefs, I just don't think so. So it would be huge if he could come back, but it's what version of him comes back, because in this game, after he returned, the Chargers were unable to take any snaps under center, and it came back to almost bite them immediately. They got down into the red zone. It was a 4th and 1. He can't get on under center to do the tush push, to run a quarterback sneak. They've been one of the best quarterback sneak teams in the NFL so far this season. When you have a 6'6", 240-pound quarterback, that should always be your number one option on 4th and 1 like that. They can't do it. They decide to run it anyways, which I think was pretty dumb, out of the shotgun, and Kamani Vidal gets dropped for a loss. You come up empty in the end zone, and that was in 4th down, and that was like the story of this game. The Chargers got off to such a slow start and were able to overcome it. But I think what the Chargers are going to have to kind of reckon with this week is just, if he's limited to the point where it changes our offense drastically on Monday Night Football, and if we give him an extra week off, could he be back under center? Could the offense look more normal? Do you do it? But I mean, Justin Herbert, man, who knows? When he was at that podium, I believed him when he said he was planning on being out there for Monday Night Football. But that is really what this game was, David, because the Chargers really, really struggled early and had 2 red zone trips that ended up with 0 points and a terrible interception by Justin Herbert. And then in the second half, they came out and pulled away.
Yeah, they absolutely did. The first half was like, oh no, it was nightmare fuel, right? I was like, there's no way that we're at halftime and we're tied with this football team. There's just absolutely no way that this should be the case. After a bye week, after you have time to be able to get things right, it looked like they were heading towards another Jacksonville type of performance against this type of team, which you just can't have at all. And fortunately, they turned it on in the second half. 24 points they scored in the second half, and they got rolling. And that was massive for them to be able to have that performance in the first half, be able to shake it off, regroup, reset, and go out there and dominate, quite frankly, in the second half, to where at the end they added a touchdown they didn't really need to add, but I'm all for it. It was all about stepping on their neck and finishing it and sweeping the Raiders and being undefeated in the AFC West this season. It was absolutely a tale of two halves. Fortunately for the Chargers, they were a lot better in the second half when it counts.
Yeah, and that's what you want to be. You want to be a second half team. You want to be a fourth quarter team. And that was so frustrating, was one of the biggest issues in the first half of the season before the bye week, was just converting in the red zone. So when you have two back-to-back red zone opportunities, one coming from your defense, getting an incredible interception from Tony Jefferson. To come up empty on those, right? And it just felt like those two drives would have been different if they could have used Justin Herbert. Because before Justin Herbert threw that goal line interception, they had it on the 1 yard line. They could have tried to sneak it in there. They couldn't do that. They tried to run it out of shotgun, got dropped for a loss. And then, especially with the space that condensed that deep in the red zone, they had to throw the ball. He throws it late. It was a bad interception for all the unluckiness he's had this year. That one, fully on him. You have to throw that ball away and take the 3 points there. But it was about them being able to pull away in the second half. And I thought the most encouraging thing here, David, was them winning in the trenches. Like getting back to being a trenches team. This game, they dominated. The offensive line and the running game dominated the Raiders' defensive line. And then defensively, the Chargers absolutely stuffed them whenever they tried to run the football. So the one thing you can control is your effort. The one thing we know Jim Harbaugh wants to be is a physical trenches team. It actually looked that way on Sunday. And there was times, especially in that Jacksonville game, when he said they got out physical, Jim Harbaugh did, that you didn't feel that way about this team.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see it. I mean, for us, like, we've watched every single Chargers game pretty much our entire lives. So I think, we've been covering this team for 10 years. We can see when the effort, the energy, the physicality and violence is there and when it's not there. It's completely clear and obvious to me every single time because it looks different. It looks like a different football team. Against the Jacksonville Jaguars, there was no physicality from anybody not named Khalil Mack. I mean, to me, it was a horrendous and completely unacceptable performance. In this game, from the very, very beginning, we saw that physicality and violence on both sides of the ball. Going forward in the running game and dictating and opening up holes from everybody, including Trey Harris, who is an absolute beast in run blocking and getting his guy out of the way just every single time. That guy is a weapon in that department. But on the defensive line, the offensive line, they were dictating this game. And whenever you can do that, whenever you can dominate the line of scrimmage, you're going to win a lot of football games.